Hello and welcome to Female Cricket Live. The 10th match of the 12th edition of the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup was played today between India and West Indies, which India went on to win by a massive margin of 155 runs. Winning the toss and electing to bat first, India posted a formidable score of 317 for 8 in 50 overs, which was also their highest total in the history of Women's Cricket World Cup that India has played so far. India, riding on twin centuries from Smriti Mandhana and Harmanpreet Kaur, posted this daunting total of 317 in 50 overs. The duo also stitched a 184-run partnership for the fourth wicket, which was the highest in the history of Women's Cricket World Cup. For West Indies, it was Anisa Mohammed who was the pick of the bowlers as she picked up 2 for 59 in her spell of 9 overs. In reply, West Indies started off the run chase quite well as they scored 100 runs in just 12 overs thanks to Deandra Doughton and HAYLEY Matthews firing on all cylinders. However, West Indies lost the rest of their 10 wickets in just 62 runs as they were bundled out for 162 in 40.3 overs. For India, Sneha Rana was the pick of the bowlers as she picked up 3 for 22 in her 9.3 overs. So after this match, we can see that both these teams, both India and West Indies, have registered 2 wins in their 3 outings so far in the World Cup campaign. Now, ahead of us, we have yet another exciting contest, and it is between New Zealand and Australia, the trans Tasmanian rivals. The match will be played at the Basin Reserve in Wellington, and it will start at 3:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time. You can catch all the live action on Star Sports and Disney Plus Hotstar. So, to talk more about this exciting contest between New Zealand and Australia, I have with me Ellie Indy, Dhanush Lavanya, and Urvi Shah. So, Ellie Indy is a keen watcher of women's cricket and an avid fan of cricket in New Zealand. Dhanush Lavanya is a content writer at Female Cricket, and Urvi Shah is a mental health facilitator and an avid cricket follower. So, I welcome all of you to Female Cricket Live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So, Ellie, to begin with you, New Zealand had a wonderful outing in the last game just a couple of days back against India. They registered a big win of 62 runs over India. So, your first thoughts on New Zealand's performance against India?
I thought it was great. Middle order was a bit, but other than that, I think the whole team performed so well. I was so happy to see it.
Yeah. So, Dhanush, my question comes to you that New Zealand is riding on a winning momentum, and so is Australia. But we know that Australia has never lost to New Zealand since 2017. And it was just in the warm up game recently that New Zealand had an upper hand over Australia. So, how do you think that will have any role to play in how Australia prepares? Like, what is the impact that will have the whole record of winning against New Zealand every now and then?
As far as the record is concerned, I don't feel it is going to play anything. Maybe for our, and I always say, head-to-head statistics is for us, the cricket lovers, to see which team we might support on the day of the game. But it's all about the performance on the field, how they assess the conditions, and how well they play based on the opportunities that are given to them. As far as Australia is concerned, they certainly lost their warm game against New Zealand, and Sophie Devine was excellent. 161 with the bat was outstanding. But after the match, when the batting coach was in the press conference, he said, we didn't play our best team. We weren't giving our 100% at all." Because they had just finished off a ODI series against the women's Ashes against England, and they wanted their players to not get injured or feel sick or anything due to the warm up games. So it wasn't you can't take that as a parameter and gauge how the match is going to be between Australia and New Zealand. And as far as the head-to-head record or the since 2017 World Cup, yes, Australia has been excellent against New Zealand. They haven't lost. Moreover, they haven't lost against many of the teams because 9 of the 11 series they have clean swept it 3-0. So since Australia is coming to this game with two victories against England and Pakistan, I really feel that Australia are having a very good run. They have started off the World Cup extremely well, and they will be hoping to continue that against New Zealand as well.
Absolutely. So, as Dhanush is talking about Australia's dominant form over the last 5 years, right from the 2017 World Cup that we have seen, Ellie, do you think that the warm up match that both these teams played? I know Dhanush just pointed out that probably Australia did not field their best playing 11 that day. But do you think this New Zealand team will take a lot of confidence from the kind of victory they had over Australia in the warm up match? We saw New Zealand chasing more than 300 runs with 9 wickets in hand. Do you think they'll be more confident going into the match?
I mean, you have to really. This is the number one team, and yes, it's a warm up, and you shouldn't really take warm up matches results seriously. But when you're chasing like 300 in a warm up match, that's something to really like take notice of. That was incredible, and I think that will boost their confidence because Australia are the number one side, and yeah, they beat them in a warm up, but actually they perform incredibly well in the warm up, and they deserve to win the warm up. Again, just a warm up, but yeah, I'm very impressed with them, and I think it's definitely going to be a confidence boost going into this match.
So, Ellie, I'll just keep continuing the question here. We know that both the sides are very high on batting lineup, like they have very strong batting lineup. So, brings me to the question: which are the batters you are looking forward to tomorrow, like to score big against Australia?
I mean, Amelia KERR has to be the obvious answer. She is in amazing form, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So definitely one. I think Amy Satterthwaite, she was coming off of that, what was it, 75 now? Or was she, I can't remember exactly, but she scored 75 runs, and I think that was amazing. So we'll also see Amy Satterthwaite in that. I'm thinking maybe Leah Tahuhu. I know they've been experimenting her in the middle order, and it's not quite worked out. But I think if a New Zealand collapse happened, I think she might today perform well. I'm not quite sure why.
So, as Ellie has pointed out, that Amelia Kerr, of course, we all know that she is blowing in red hot form in the recent past. We all know what she did against India in the bilateral series, scoring more than 350 runs and picking up 7 wickets with the ball. So, Amelia Kerr is definitely going to be a player to watch out for. Amy Satterthwaite, of course, as Ellie mentioned. So, Dhanush, let me ask you that we all know that New Zealand has this solid top four in Sophie Devine, Susie Bates, Amelia Kerr, and Amy Satterthwaite. So, do you think the Australian can try somebody like Jess Jonathan early in the innings? Because we all know that Jess Jonathan is a left arm spinner. She has the ability to take the ball away from the right handers. So, do you think Australia can go ahead with Jess Jonathan with the new ball?
Absolutely. I always feel that when you are in this World Cup, basically, any team that has started off the proceedings with a spinner at one end and a fast bowler at the other, it has worked out. We saw India versus New Zealand where they had Francis McKay, who started off the bowling. She was the right arm off spinner who started off bowling really good for Smriti Mandana and Yastika Bhatia and restricted them really well. So definitely, Jess Jonathan is like you don't have anything to say, anything to deny on because she's world number one in when it comes to ODIs, and she has been world number one ODI bowler since like 2 3 years. She is like that consistent. And when you see the records between Australia and New Zealand, Jess Jonathan has taken like 40 wickets against them in like 2021 matches. So that shows that she knows how to tackle the New Zealand batters. And since Australia and New Zealand have played so much cricket together against each other for such a long time, it will be a very amazing contest to see how these two teams will face against each other. The bowling attack certainly of Australia will be making sure the top four is sent back to the pavilion as fast as possible because we know how destructive they can be. Because America, like how Ellie said, she's like blooming into this big superstar in New Zealand cricket, and she's giving both with the bat and the ball. She scored a fine 50 in the previous game. Sophie Devine had a great start against India. She scored 35. She was hitting some of the best cover drives I've seen in women's cricket now. And Amy Satterthwaite had a really good game, 75, and she was excellent. And Susie Bates against Bangladesh, she scored a good 70 as well. So these four players are really in good touch, and it's important for South African fast bowlers, especially LSC Perry, Thalia McGrath. Then we are going to see Ashley Gardner coming back to the playing 11. She is going to be having a real big amount of pressure, not pressure, responsibility, and Megan Scrute, who has been the world number 3 when it comes to ICC bowlers. So these 4 fast bowlers are going to be important, and also Jess Jonathan, who has been an instrumental factor against New Zealand when Australia have played against them.
Yeah, so I really want to go ahead and ask Ellie that, as Dhanush mentioned, that Jess Jonathan is like a very key bowler. If she comes into play, she's going to make the batting difficult for New Zealand. So, which are the batters? Like, you know that Meg Lanning really loves scoring against New Zealand, right? So, who are you looking forward to in the bowling lineup from New Zealand to tackle the top 3 of Australia? That is Rachel Haynes, Elisa Healy, and Meg Lanning.
Someone experienced, so I'm not really going to say Amelia Kerr, and I'm not going to say Jess Kerr. She's great, Jess Kerr, but I think it might be Leah Tahuhu. She's got the experience. She probably knows this Australian side better than anyone else in that bowling lineup, arguably. And I think she will make it very hard for Australia.
Yeah, to add on to that as well, Leah Tahu, who had an excellent match against India the previous game, she took 3 for 17 in 10 overs. So that literally shows that she has the experience and she knows how to play against big teams. And there are other names like Hannah Rowe, who has also been really impressive over the last couple of months, and she had a very good series against India as well. So these are certain names for sure, and Leah Tahu, like how Eddie said, is going to be having the big responsibility of taking out Australia's top 3.
Absolutely. Just taking up from where Dhanush and Ellie have left, that of course New Zealand boast of a good pace battery in Liatahu, of course Hayley Jensen, they have Hannah Rowe, Jess Kerr, and also good spinners in Amelia Kerr and McKay. Right. So Ellie, moving on with this conversation, the match is going to be played at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. If we see the record of New Zealand there, it is pretty bad. They have won just 1 out of the 11 matches, but Australia, on the other hand, have won 11 out of the 12 matches. Do you think that will be playing on New Zealand's mind because New Zealand played their World Cup opener at Mount Maunganui, where also they had a bad record. They had just 3 wins out of 13 games. And again, they lost to West Indies in the World Cup opener by 3 runs. So do you think that will play on New Zealand's mind tomorrow?
A little bit. They are like a predominantly Wellington team. You know, you have Sophie Devine, Georgia Plymouth if she plays, Amelia Kerr, Jess Kerr. So they will all know this ground fairly well, and they've had their domestic summer here, so they kind of know this place. So if you think in recent times, I don't think it will affect them that much. I think they will be confident. But the overall record, you know, that's not good, and it might play on their mind a little, but I'm going to go that recently their players have looked good there, and I don't think they'll think about their overall record too much about that.
Now that we are talking about the ground that they are being played on, Dhanush, I would really like to know your thoughts on how the weather is going to play tomorrow. Like, it has been predicted to be a little windy and chilly kind of weather out there. So, how do you think that will affect team selection or the bowling changes or the bowling combinations? As we always see that as the weather changes, there are certain pitch changes that happen. So, what are your thoughts on that?
As far as my thoughts about Wellington conditions, since I've seen a few matches in Wellington for the Indian cricket team, New Zealand men's cricket team, it's a condition which always is like, though it's windy, the ball is going to swing a lot. It's going to be overcast when it comes to the normal weather. The temperature will be low, so it is going to be important for New Zealand for both the teams to make sure that their pace battery is on their toes, because if they can get the early swing, if they are able to get those in swingers, out swingers, and they are able to get the movements, and then they are pitching the ball at the right region, no matter who is the player in the opposite side, whether it's Sophie Devine or Susie Bates or Amelia or Lisa Haley or Rachel Haynes, it doesn't matter. Leah Tahuhu for New Zealand, for Australia, Megan Scrute, Elise Perry, these women will have the pace bowlers, basically, whom I'm saying, of both the teams will have a great amount of purchase in the wicket. So they can utilize the maximum amount of maximum way, so that the swing conditions won't be available for the whole 50 overs. It will be available for the first 10 to 15 overs maximum. So they have to make sure that they bowl their line and lengths perfectly and utilize the wind conditions and how the wind is blowing. Sometimes you can the ball swings based on the wing, based on the side the wind is coming from. So they have to do the thinking of all those stuff and bowl in the right areas.
Absolutely. Rink, and I was just reading about the weather conditions in Wellington for tomorrow. So it shows that there is going to be 100% cloud cover, which suggests that it is going to be cloudy tomorrow in Wellington. And of course, we have to note the fact that it is going to be a day game. So let us see how the weather pans out tomorrow. So, Ellie, moving on, we have seen at that venue 16 matches have been played in women's ODI cricket so far. Teams batting first have won 7, teams batting second have won 9. And if we look at New Zealand, they have won one out of the two matches chasing in this World Cup campaign so far. So, what do you think will New Zealand do after, if they win the toss? And also, I would like to highlight that the highest total at that venue has been 266 and the lowest being 61, which was unfortunately put by New Zealand. So, what do you think? What do you think is New Zealand going to do if they win the toss tomorrow?
Part of me thinks they should bowl so they can chase, but like you say, they haven't really been successful chasing, so it's going to be a tricky one. I think if they set the total, the Australian bowlers are just so good. You kind of want to get the Australian batter, the top order, out early. So that's why I'm saying bowl first, because if they get that Australian top order out early with Leah Tahuhu, Hannah Rowe, Hayley Jensen, then the total won't be that big to chase. And yeah, it's a tricky one, a very tricky one to think about. But bowl first, but we'll see.
Yeah, now that we have talked about the stadium and the toss, I would like to ask both of you, Dhanush and Ellie, that do you see any changes happening to the team lineup for the next game? Let's start with Ellie. Do you see anyone coming in or anyone, like any order changing for the playing 11 for New Zealand?
Not really. We didn't see a change in the previous game to what it was in the game before, so they stuck with the same team. And I don't really think they'll change this team much. They might bring in Rosemary Mayer for someone, but I couldn't really tell you. I don't think they will change it. This team's going well, and you don't really need to change something if it's not doing bad. Like, they're doing well, so they don't need to change.
Yeah, definitely. As far as Australia is concerned, I will say that Ashley Gardner is going to come back to the side. She was unfortunately tested positive just the day before the opener of the 2022 World Cup. So now she has finished her 10-day quarantine period and she is now back to the side. And the performance of hers individually against New Zealand has been good. 153 runs and she has got 8 wickets till now. Like, she has played like 12 matches against them. And with her coming in, I see that Amanda Wellington was the leg spinner playing in the previous game against Pakistan. She might be missing out because, as I said, due to the conditions being more into the overcast side and with the wind and all those stuff, it's going to assist the pace bowlers more than the spinners. So I see Elena King. I see Elena King staying in the side. Jess Jonathan, she will be a must in the side. Those are the two spinners. Then there are going to be four fast bowlers in the form of four medium fast and fast bowlers in the form of Megan Scroot, LSE Perry, Talia Meghwat, and Ashley Gardner. Though that's the only change that I'm going to see. That I'm saying that that's going to happen because that is pretty much a done deal.
Right. So, any quick predictions? What would be the score for tomorrow, Ellie? If New Zealand bat first, what could be the score?
I'd like the score to be 200 plus, but I think that's a bit ambitious. I'm going to say 180. I'd like the score to be 180. I feel like that might be a good one to defend at Wellington.
Okay. Dhanush, what do you think? If Australia bats first, what could be the score that they would post?
Australian batsmen have a really good record against the New Zealand side altogether. Lacey Haley, she is LSE Haley is then a world number one batsman. She has scored like 400 plus runs. Rachel Haynes has some good records. Meg Lanning has scored 1,140 runs, which is like it is like a career score for some players. But she has scored that many runs against New Zealand itself. So these top three are going to make sure that they see off the first fight and overs, because if the ball swings, if there is wind and overcast conditions, as we are talking and repeatedly saying it, maybe the first 10 overs would be tricky for the with the new ball for the Australian batsmen. They have to stay there, defend it, and try to make sure that they see off the early stages of the game so that they can utilize the rest of the 30-35 overs that is left and pile up the runs as much as possible. With the average score, like how you say, being around like 240 to 260, I feel that if the score is somewhere around that, Australia will be really happy defending it, because they know they have this kind of a record against New Zealand where if they take one wicket, they can take the whole team out, just like how West Indies got out today against India. So we can see the similar thing happening against for New Zealand tomorrow if Australia are able to be as dominant as they are usually. And New Zealand perspective, I feel like they need to be targeting upwards more than 200 for sure, because they have a very good top four. So I hope that there is a competitive game at the end of the day, because these two teams really know each other really well. The head-to-head record has been quite competitive over the last few years. So we have to be happy that this game is really going to be exciting, because those two teams are pretty much playing in home conditions.
Yeah, so before we move on, I want to ask a very quick question to Ellie here. Ellie, as a fan from New Zealand, are you looking forward to any particular matchup tomorrow, that like any exciting face to face of any batter bowler combination?
Not like a particular one. I just always love it when it's New Zealand versus Australia. It's just always a good battle. But there's no particular one. Like maybe an experienced bowler versus an experienced bowler, like Sophie Devine v Elise Perry, whether that one of them be batting or one of them be bowling, they're both all rounders. It doesn't really matter which way around, as long as we get a good competition. So definitely one of the experienced ones going against another experienced one. I think that could be quite fun.
As far as my part is concerned, I will say it is Leah Tahuhu from New Zealand against Alisa Haley from Australia, because Alisa Haley, I don't know why, because that she has been really consistent when it comes to playing against any side. And over the last 3-4 years, she has been really good with the bat. And Leah Tahuhu, she had an exceptional match against India, 3 for 17 in 10 overs. It's a big thing for any bowler to just give less than 20 runs in 10 overs is just outstanding. And she's coming off with that kind of a performance, and with the playing conditions or being overcast, this matchup is something that is going to be really tricky one for both the players, and they will be at their 100% is what I would like to say.
So, Dhanush, as you are talking about Leah Tahuhu, right? So, in the last game that New Zealand played against India, she did not open the bowling for New Zealand. So, do you think New Zealand will opt to open the bowling with Leah Tahuhu, or will they play her in the middle overs tomorrow?
I feel that she has always been an opening bowler for them. Maybe because she didn't have good performance against West Indies and Bangladesh, where she was smashed for some runs in the early overs. That is why they took that gamble of bringing her in the 10th over and not starting up with her. And also where they wanted to make sure that Smriti Mandana and Yastika Bhatia won't get that pace, because we know Smriti Mandana is really good when the ball comes to the bat. So now they are playing in Wellington, which is a really windy condition. Always when you play Wellington, irrespective of the time you are playing, there is going to be the wind factor in that particular stadium, in that particular region. So with the swing being available at the early stages of the matches, I feel that Leah Tahuhu will be the one who will be opening the bowling for New Zealand, and it will be Alisa Haley who is going to be opening the batting in the striker side when the match starts. So that is why I feel that matchup is going to be important, and Leah Tahuhu's role is going to be really important, because she's the experienced head in that bowling unit, and she leads that bowling unit of New Zealand.
Right. Let us see who's opening the bowling for New Zealand tomorrow, because it will be interesting to see. Because as we saw in the last match against India, Leah Tahuhu bowled after the power play. All right. So it was wonderful talking to you, Ellie, Dhanush, and Urvi, about this exciting contest between the trans-Tasmanian rivals, New Zealand and Australia. They'll be facing off against each other at the Basin Reserve in Wellington tomorrow. That is 12th of March. Sorry, 13th of March, and the match will be played. It will start at 3:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time, and you can catch all the live action on Star Sports and Disney Plus Hotstar. Thank you to all the fans and viewers for watching our show, and we'll be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. to preview the match between Pakistan and Bangladesh that will be played on 14th of March. So do join us for a conversation at 8 p.m. tomorrow, and send in your questions using hashtag Female Cricket Live. Thank you.